call this summer on the Ag PhD radio program, and the farmer said, all right, can you help me solve my soil issue here? I've got a fertility problem. And we said, sure, let's talk through it. What's going on in the field? And he said, well, I've got a high pH, I've got a high level of salts, I've got, an issue in the part of the field. Well, I know I need drainage, but in the absence of drainage, what can I do to fix all this stuff? And you know what? There's nothing you can do. How are you going to get your pH to come down long term without doing drainage? And we think about the economic return on investment on every input that we put into our fields. The economic return on drainage tile may be the best of all.
Well, the reason why we're talking about this today is going into the late summer and into the fall, you're going to have some opportunity, hopefully, to get some tile in the ground. And you got to get started on this today, because if you want to tile 2 months from now, there's a little process here. You might have to have NRCS come out and actually do some wetland determinations. You might have to be talking to your neighbors. You might have to get some approvals from highway departments or watershed districts. All those things kind of take time and they take some work. And I guess my biggest piece of advice is to say this: it's absolutely worth your time. I spent about 3 years of my life talking with neighbors and working with highway departments, getting approvals, walking a lot of fields, doing all this kind of stuff, and we're reaping the rewards now big time. It's just unbelievable how much our yield has increased once we've gotten the tile in the ground. Because here's the thing, anything else you do, I don't care if it's fertility, weed control, bug control, picking the right hybrids, all these other things that people talk about, oh, you got to do this and you'll have more yield and profit, this and you'll have more yield and profit. You look at the high yield guys in the country, yeah, I'm doing this, this, and this. None of that stuff pays very well if you don't have good drainage. You have to get the tile in the ground. You have to have good soil health. You have to have more oxygen in the soil. You got to get some tile out there, and it'll make an enormous difference for you.
This spring was another great example of how tile was going to pay. I talked to farmers all across the country that either had just great big rains that they were trying to get rid of, or had a whole month or two where it rained all the time. And it may not have been 5-inch rains at a time, but they never had a break where the soil dried back out and tile lines were running. We could see those fields on the aerial shots. We could see exactly where the tile lines were in the fields. And on a side note, for farmers that say, well, hey, I had tile put in many years ago, it sure would be nice if I could map out exactly where those lines are. Here's your opportunity. When you have a year like that and you have moisture stress or you have drought stress, fly over the field, take a picture. You can see exactly where every tile line was in the field. And this year, what we saw big time in those areas was the depth of roots. So when we got over those tile lines, we had deeper roots. When we got out halfway in between the tile lines, we had very shallow roots. And right now, this time of year, when we normally would dry out in the summer, that's where it shows up in fields. We see moisture stress in between tile lines, and right over the tile lines, things look good. So the way you can challenge yourself to see, well, does that really amount to a huge amount in my field? Watch your combine, watch your yield monitor. Try to go right over those tile lines and see what a difference that makes. It's a really big deal for you when we get a wet spring like this. Now, it can be too wet, where the rivers are out of their banks and there's just nowhere for the water to go. Yes, that definitely happens. I talked to some farmers this spring that said, well, I don't know if tile would have really made a difference for me because the ditches were full, the rivers were full, there was nowhere for the water to go. Hey, you're absolutely right for that time until the water starts to go down. But once it starts going down, you're going to recover so much faster. You're going to be back in the field so much faster than anybody else around you if you've got tile in the ground.
One of the great things with the downturn in commodity prices has been
One of the great things
has been you have good opportunities to buy now. Drain tile, 4-inch drain tile, for example, we were paying 35 cents a foot. We're paying 25 cents a foot now. It's enormous what it's come down. And then you take a look at farm equipment, land values, all these types of things have come down. It's a buyer's market right now compared to what it was just a couple of years ago. So, well, I realize times are a little bit tougher. You got to think about this thing as a very long-term investment. Okay, so the money I spent on tile 2 years ago, am I trying to recover all that in 2 years? Well, actually, maybe I probably will, but I'm just trying to say I'm going to get benefit out of it for 50 years. Hopefully for longer than I'm even alive. We're going to get benefit in our farm operation from that drain tile in the ground. So I'm just trying to say, look at the big picture here. And don't say, oh boy, times are tough and I can't spend any money. You got to look at what can I do that's going to give me a good return on investment in the short term and in the long term. And there's still plenty of banks out there that are willing to help you invest money in your ground to make it better long term.
One other thing that will take some work is controlling our weed of the week. We'll show you how to do it coming up next.